So we're going to move on to our next segment, which is how S.C. Johnson has stepped forward to fund Alderman Beale's cop house, or what he's calling it as a cop house, which I guess is a house they're going to rehab and make it into a community policing location. Once again, a failure. But it's somehow going to take it outside of the department, and because you're putting one house in one police district, that is somehow going to really bring the community and police together. Alderman Beale has Alderman Beale has said he's been fighting with the mayor. This recent article that we flashed up on the screen is written by Fran Spielman. She gets 2 of our hits today. We're talking about 2 of her pieces in different segments. The next segment also is about a piece that Fran wrote, and it's really devoid of any context. So, I've been in aldermen's offices when Fran's called their cell phones or in meetings with them, and they just put it to voicemail because, to quote one alderman, she's just looking to make trouble. She's just looking for a salacious quote. And that's basically Fran's MO, and especially around these issues. Beale has talked about they're mimicking or trying to mimic a project in Racine, but you wouldn't know that because Fran doesn't know. She doesn't put up anything about how, any information about if that's what they're looking at. Well, what is this project in Wisconsin, in Racine, Wisconsin, and how did it go? Has it been independently evaluated? Did it work? Yes, of course, some of these things in the short term are going to make people feel like they're part of something and that the police department are trying something. So it may change opinions about the police a little bit over the short term, but it's about whether it holds up long term. It'd be nice if we could have that data about, what's going on. If this is a replication issue, what happened in Racine? Fran, make a call, do some research. That's really not her MO. Her MO is getting salacious quotes she can make a good headline out of. And honestly, I got to tell you a story quickly that when we were trying to pass police board reform, this is why Daley was in office still. We had basically more or less, we as me and the Chicago Justice Project and the Chicago Coalition for Police Accountability, were more or less working out a deal with Alderman Ike Carruthers. And I won't tell you the ward because I don't remember it exactly, and I don't want to give you the wrong ward. He was chairman of the Police and Fire Committee at the time. And at one of those meetings, I get a call from Alderman Fioretti during the city council meeting. I'm in the back in the audience. He's on the floor. You can't take calls. So I walk outside the chambers and take it. And he's asking me about a study we published on the police board. And I start telling him the findings. And he's like, no. Read it to me, dictate it to me like you're writing an article, because I'm sitting here with Fran Spielman and I'm just going to give it right to her, everything you say. And he did it. And I believe within a couple hours, an article appeared on the Sun-Times website. I was never called by Fran. I don't think she made any other calls. So, that just shows you why you get stories like this about this project in Racine that Beale is trying to replicate in his ward. I believe it's the 9th ward. Make a call, Fran. Let's figure out what the hell is going on in Racine and whether it is worth replicating. Just because he says he's replicating somewhere else, it doesn't mean it worked. And if he tells you it works, how do you know he's telling you the truth? How do you know he knows what the hell he's talking about? And so just to wrap this up in a little bow, you got to remember, people, these aldermen, when something happens, Anjanette Young, Laquan McDonald, there's always talk about doing things, and they so rarely ever get anything done. Alderman Beale is a prime example because about maybe 14 months, somewhere in that range, 15 months, Alderman Beale was chair of the Police and Fire Committee under Richard Daley before Ron came in for about 14, 15 months. And I can tell you, they did nothing on this issue. Nothing around police accountability. Zero. Beale's been on that committee, which is now called Public Safety, for a long time. What's he done? Nothing. Nothing. We have the data we're publishing in the spring on 20 years of their activity. He's done nothing. This is what he does. And, in the Anjanette Young hearing the Public Safety Committee had, he's talking very seriously and strenuously about needing to get something done, and the city's counting on us. The people are counting us to do something. And that's great, Alderman, except for the fact that Alderman Beale wanted to outlaw no-knock warrants. We got to do something. And it's even after Superintendent Brown is like, I don't know what you're talking about. The warrant wasn't a no-knock warrant. You could outlaw them, but they're not going to make any difference in the case. It isn't going to stop what happened to Anjanette Young from happening again. Did that stop him? Nope. He kept pushing. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's ban no-knock warrants. Even though, admittedly, it would have no impact. It's sad, but that's true. There's a couple quotes of Beale arguing or complaining about how Superintendent Brown isn't as visible as past superintendents, which is just really sad because I'm not sure what that means. I mean, don't you care whether or not crime is being fought, whether or not you care about that rather than whether or not the superintendent's there? What's better? More crime being prevented and the superintendent staying in the headquarters, or a superintendent being on the ground in your community, but crime being out of control? It's a ridiculous argument, but I mean, from the city council, for most of them, you don't expect anything less. And then Beale talks about how the institutional knowledge that left when Superintendent Brown came in. Police officials, especially senior police officials, leaving when a consent decree comes in and federal investigation and then a consent decree is not a shock. You know why the feds are in? Because your department is not working. Many of your senior leaders are not doing their job, and they've just towed the company line forever. So them leaving, not a surprise. That is not Superintendent Brown's issues. If you wanted all the leaders to say, then what needed changing? When you need change, you bring in new leaders. That's how you get change. But don't tell Alderman Beale that. He complains about the institutional knowledge lost. It's kind of sad, really. If you want change in the department, the leaders got to be changed. That is just the way, especially old school CPD leaders.